Hey everyone, so the labor theory of value, or rather the law of value in the Marxian sense, I just wanted to make a few comments on it. For anyone who doesn't know, the labor theory of value basically states that the economic value of some product or service is derived from the average amount of socially necessary labor time that was embedded into the product from the laborer's labor. Basically what that means is the average amount of labor time it takes to make something is its value. Now, the most important thing to make note of about those who support the labor theory of value is that they seemingly reject the marginal theory of value or the subjective theory of value, and they also seemingly reject that supply and demand has anything to do with value. And I can actually see where they're coming from, but the main problem is that they greatly diminish and sometimes outright ignore society's and consumers' relationship to the product itself. And it's worth pointing out that society and the consumer are often the laborers themselves. So let me give you an example of what I mean. There's something called the paradox of value, or sometimes referred to as the diamond water paradox. This can be used as a criticism of the labor theory of value, because if it takes, for example, 30 days on average to create a bottle of water, but it takes 30 months on average to mine and polish a diamond, if you are dying of thirst in the desert, the average labor time going into the water and diamond is irrelevant to you. You subjectively value the water more than the diamond, even though there is far more labor embedded into the diamond. In fact, you'd shove a diamond merchant out of the way to get to that bottle of water. Now, that is an extreme example used to prove a point, so let me scale down the severity to be fair. A space heater, for example, is extremely valuable to someone living in northern Canada in January, as opposed to someone living in Phoenix, Arizona in July, who would find no value whatsoever in a space heater, no matter how much labor time was put into it. Or better yet, sunglasses to someone in Phoenix, Arizona would be highly valued, whereas someone in Seattle, Washington, they don't need or want sunglasses for more than half the year. The input of labor into these commodities is taken into consideration far less than the end user's actual use they get out of the product. Again, I repeat, the labor theory of value ignores the relationship that we all have to those commodities. The point to be taken away here, above everything else, is, as I've said, those who consider the labor theory of value to be the be-all, end-all of where value is found by human beings seem to me to be completely ignoring a large part of the equation here. And that is, again, the people's relationship to these commodities, society's relationship to these commodities. But here is the strange curveball that I have seen more and more often recently from proponents of the labor theory of value. You can mention supply and demand, subjective theory of value, the marginal theory of value, and Marxists will actually generally say, yes, there has to be use value. Use value is actually an important part of the Marxian law of value. We recognize that the valuation that people place on things in different circumstances, different times, different places, this all plays a role. We recognize that overabundance and shortages can have an effect on the consumer's relationship to that good. It's a strange position I find myself in when Marxists do this, because it seems like they concede every point and they recognize that much of what other theories of value have to offer need to be taken into consideration, but then in the next breath they discard them and claim the labor theory of value as king. Now, it's strange in a sense, but then again, not really, because I kind of see what's going on here. They are playing the same game that creationists and flat earthers are playing. They have the conclusion far before any conversation takes place. That conclusion is that exploitation of the laborer must be a real thing, and they need the labor theory of value for this. This is why everything becomes so convoluted when discussing this with Marxists. This is a fairly academic subject, I guess you could say, but it's not terribly difficult to understand and comprehend, right? It's not quantum mechanics. But the moment Marxists inject themselves into it, it becomes indecipherable, cryptic, mystical, and arcane. And I'll explain what I mean. I don't think that the labor theory of value in and of itself is an insane idea. I could see how someone might think that there is value in labor that creates something useful and sought after. That's not an insane thought to me, but that's not really the end of the story at all, is it? How many of these products do we already have? To what degree does society want these products? How many of these products are already out there? What can people do to substitute these products with something else? How many people already have these products, and to what degree do they want more? These questions have everything to do with the valuation of things, and labor certainly plays a role into it, but it is by no means the whole picture. But I too often find labor theory proponents twisting meanings, changing definitions, moving goalposts, and evolving what they intend to prove as the conversation goes on. It reminds me exactly of a conversation with a creationist or a flat earther. It's easy to understand how the earth goes around the sun, but once you say that the sun is above the earth, now you have to go into insane models that make no sense whatsoever. And that's how you would explain it. It's much simpler if you just put the sun at the center of the solar system. So something that can be understood with a little bit of effort all of a sudden becomes an opaque, ambiguous, cluttered, and amorphous mass of ideas that becomes impossible to pin down. And judging by the myriad of different and contradictory explanations of the labor theory of value from Marxists themselves, I suspect that they feel the same way. But that's all for now. If you, the consumer, value my work here, subjectively decide to subscribe if you will. Alright, thanks. So long.